And I'm going to go to the streaming service, and that should just take a minute. Okay, I think we're all set.
Okay, you might want to just check to see if anyone's in the waiting room that needs to come in. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Wednesday, June 9th. This is the Village of Mamaroneck regularly scheduled planning board meeting. Okay, we have, I have to take attendance. Okay. We have planning board members Cindy Goldstein, Ellen Styler, Richard Littman, and of course me. We have our village planner, Amber Novak, our consulting planner, Ashley Lay, our consulting engineer, Esteban Garcia, and our land use attorney, Teresa Bakener here, and our landscape architect, consulting landscape architect. I forgot the first word. Susan, I'm terrible at that. Okay, we have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first one is 626 Halstead Avenue. The applicant is proposing to construct a 4,300 square foot parking area behind the building with 13 parking spaces and a loading area. They needed to do a stormwater management plan, and requires a site plan approval because of that. Can we promote anyone who's here to speak for the applicant? When you come on, you can bring us up to date on where you are. We have Mr. Spatz. Mr. Spatz.
Good.
Wait a minute. Are you here from Halstead Avenue?
Wait, Judge, Judge, oh my goodness. Chair, members of the planning board, Andrew Spatz for the applicant. I get the easy lift tonight because my consultant, Michael Stein, and my client, Michael Lage, are present. So they're going to be doing most of the discussion. It's like, where's Waldo? I happen to be at Lorenzo Park coaching a playoff game for the Little League. So it's like, where's Waldo? It's a great thing. So I'm going to go on mute, but Michael, I just want to make sure Michael Stein is on our.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's here.
Wonderful. And he's got the heavy lift with the SWIP and discuss the requests that were made. I know that we did receive some input from the village's consultant. And I'll let you all do your thing. I'm standing by, and we're up by 1, by the way, Chair and members of the planning board. So go Mamaroneck. All right. So
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll move from Mamaroneck. Who are they playing?
They're playing this other team. I think Larchmont or something. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. My fault.
Go Mamaroneck.
It's all good. All right. Bye-bye. All right. Well, I'm standing by. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we have Michael Stein on behalf of the applicant. Is there anyone else that needed? He mentioned on the name. Are you flying solo tonight?
Michael, that was Michael Lage. He is the owner of the property.
Okay.
I don't see him on
Okay.
as an attendee, if that's the name.
Yeah,
Amber, thank you. We're good.
All right.
Michael Stein, believe me, he's got enough for all
Right,
of
yeah,
us.
'cause
So
I
we're all
think
good.
the open issues were all with regards to the.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is going to be the Michael and Esteban show.
Yes, good evening.
Okay.
And actually,
Yeah, Michael, why don't you sort of bring us up to date? You were here in April,
so subsequent to the last meeting, we had put together the SWIP for the project. We had also worked to address some comments. I know there's a few outstanding comments. Basically, we did our field testing out in the area and witnessed very favorable results for the percolation and deep hole testing. There it is. So we had 21 inches per hour and 96 inches without encountering groundwater or ledge rock. So soils were very, as expected, very conducive to using infiltration. We provided water quality, basically an isolation row, along with water quality calculations. For the most part, that's just a quick summation. And I know, unfortunately, I didn't see Esteban's memo until today, but everything is relatively minor in a sense. And as the board knows, we eagerly work with Esteban to address all the comments.
And if I could just interject for a second, Chair, members of the planning board, please recall the actual property is located on Halstead Avenue. The proximity of the parking lot is consistent with other properties in the immediate area. And we definitely believe that this would assist offsetting any issues with parking on street to accommodate that. So with regards to its purpose and being consistent in harmony with other areas along Halstead, we do believe, and I think Michael would agree, that it's very consistent with existing uses.
And I don't know if you can see the, I also put up the Esteban's comments. I don't know if there's anything specific that the board would be interested in talking about. Again, we're confident with the remaining comments. They're all relatively minor. It really wouldn't change the outcome of the design.
I guess I would like just to, maybe we can just go through each one, because they, may not be all that substantial and by themselves, but there seems to be 5. And so I just want to understand what the comments were about and how, whatever you're doing to address
the
them.
first 2 have to do with the percolation deep hole testing. Part of that is to show the location of the test hole on the plan. The whole idea is that when we're going out to do the testing, we're looking right in the area of where we're doing the practice or within an immediate vicinity. So we're as close as possible that we can be to where we're looking at basically doing the work. So that's really comments 1 and 2. Comment 6 is we have an inlet right before it's called a Nyloplast. It's basically a brand name. It's just a type of inlet, and he wants to see that put into the HydroCAD model, showing how the weir's functioning. Because again, as I mentioned, we have we're putting in an isolation row, and so the intent is the water doesn't equally distribute to all the units. So the water doesn't equally distribute to both rows. It first goes into the isolation row, and then it hits a weir and then overflows into the second row. It's nothing that really would change the design, but again, it's just adding it into the model, because it's still using the full capacity of the Coltech system. Just bear with me 1 second, because I just gotta replug my computer in. Hold on, sorry. Sorry, it said I had 10%, so I didn't want to lose you in the middle.
Michael, I've got some extension cords out here at Lorenzo Field if you need.
The proposed system is designed, has been designed, should be shown. We have designed the system to 100% infiltrate the 100-year storm event, which is above what the village's requirements are. He's requesting an overflow be provided for any storms larger than a 100-year storm. That's something I'm going to speak with Esteban about, in part because the only location I'd be able to put an overflow would specifically be along the railroad side, which I don't see that as really being a feasible alternative, in part because the railroad, they're not going to want something that discharges directly as a point source down into their property. So otherwise, I mean, for a 100-year storm, you're talking 9 inches in 24 hours, or 9.5 inches, which is an extremely substantial storm. And at that point, you have water. If you're outside in that, you're going to be standing in water no matter where you are. But again, that's something that we can work together with Esteban to address.
So you're saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Stein, you're saying that you're meeting the basic code requirements with what you're showing here. Mr. Garcia is maybe looking for something to beef it up a little bit.
Well, the village's code requires a 25-year storm, which is roughly 6.5 inches of rain. We're up to the 100-year storm, which is over around 9.5 inches of rain. So we're substantially above what is the requirements of the village.
Okay, so indulge me my ignorance for a second. So yeah, the likelihood of 9 inches of rain in a 24-hour period is slim, but how do you deal with repetitive storms of maybe, 3 days of 5 inches a day each.
Within 24 hours, the system with our 100-year storm, and that's why we design the systems the way we do. Within 24 hours, our system's completely vacated of water. It percolates into the soil. Again, we have very positive percolation rates, and going up to the 100-year storm, that's what the HydroCAD is modeling. Which also keeping in mind, HydroCAD is a very conservative design approach.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. The area beyond the limit of the proposed curb, I believe it's my understanding, and I'll take the position that we anticipate returning that to lawn landscaped area. That whatever gravel will be removed. That's the purpose of putting the curb in, is to delineate the boundaries of the parking area. And did I miss one?
No, that's everything.
Okay.
Oh, I think there's one more, 14.
14.
Oh, 14.
It was just an annotation. There was
Sorry, I didn't turn this-
pointed to the inlet structure before the isolation roll, so I didn't know which one.
Okay, and that's just a notation that can be
Yeah.
modified. Sorry, I didn't realize it was a new one.
So I guess my question for Mr. Garcia is, do you agree that any of these open items would not change the system as it's currently laid out?
No, I don't foresee that. They're typically minor changes in terms of the stormwater comments. Once I get an updated HydroCAD model from Hudson Engineering, I don't anticipate it being a major change, probably very, very minor. And then the rest of the comments are, pretty, could be self-corrected fairly quickly. So I have no objections of it changing the design drastically.
Okay.
I guess my question is really, it looks like number one is the most serious, verifying that 3 feet exists between the bottom of the system and the groundwater table or bedrock. I mean, if that's still an open question as to whether there is that 3 feet space, because if there isn't, then the system really can't be approved, right?
Yeah, because it's not meeting the separation distance as stated per the New York State Stormwater Design Manual for Chapter 6.
And which requires 3 feet of separation between the bottom of the infiltration practice and groundwater and or ledge rock. In our case, we got down 96 inches. So take off 3 feet from that for that separation, that leaves you with 5 feet. 2.5 feet for the system itself. So that brings you down to 2.5 feet. A foot of gravel we put underneath. We now have 1.5 feet, which we have 1.5 feet of cover over the system. So we have more than adequate ability to provide the separation. And again, we haven't, there was no groundwater or ledge rock encountered at 96. And based upon the way that the property slopes down to the railroad tracks, the probability of having any ledge rock or groundwater going down, because this entire area would have been filled in.
Okay, so to transport engineering, you have no problem meeting the 3 foot separation requirement.
No.
Get through the details. Spoke like a true engineer. Okay, this is good. I don't even have to call for people. It's all happening by conversation. Anybody else have any other questions on the SWIP or for Mr. Stein? Mr. Spatz, we're going to let you just pay attention to the kids.
No, well, this both are exciting, but we're now tied here. I'm listening to Mr. Stein. The dialogue's incredible. But I have one question in advance of the next meeting. Is there anything that we would need, any input from Ms. Oakley, the consultant for the village? We just want to make sure the final, whatever final touches we need to place on the application, that we, could sort of address that at this point.
If we have to deal with secret tonight, and then we have a draft resolution in front of us, we could possibly decide if everyone's in agreement. You're muted, but stay muted because we're listening to the kids. We don't want to listen to the kids.
Wait, would you rather hear a lawyer crying or the kids playing? I'm not sure what, I'm just kidding. No, so you did hear me about my inquiry with regards to any landscaping or anything like that from Miss
I don't
Oakley,
think there is any
the
landscaping in
consultant. I
this,
just want to make sure. Okay,
Yeah, I think.
wonderful. I just want to make sure we have it all covered.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else?
Because
have-
again, we do adjoin.
All right, you done? Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? We have to account for Spat's time, I think, when we're talking about the length of the meeting. Does anybody have any other questions on this, of the SWIP, of the engineer, of the engineers? We'll just leave it at that. Okay. Okay. At our last meeting, we typed this application as an unlisted action. We do have to deal with secret tonight. We have a short environmental assessment form filled out with an impact assessment, and everything is marked negative, that there's no conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regs. There's no change in the intensity or use or intensity of the use of the land. This action doesn't impair the quality of the existing community, the character, or no impact on a critical environmental area, no change in traffic, increase in energy, no impacting water supplies or private or public wastewater treatment, no. No problem with the historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources. Will the action result in adverse change to natural resources? No, actually it's no or small impact. Will proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. I think Teresa actually prepared this form, but I know Ashley, you also had worked on this. So if you want to make a comment to the board, Ashley is recommending that we neg deck this.
Yes, I recommend that you issue a negative declaration.
Right.
Yeah, there's a justification on part 3, Kathy, if you want to.
Yeah, okay. Since Teresa wrote this, let's read it. This came just like 45 minutes ago, so we didn't get a chance to send this out to everybody. No moderate to large impacts have been identified. The project is the construction of a parking lot in an area that has been disturbed in the past and is located behind an existing mixed-use building. The SWIP has been reviewed by the village's engineer and with a few minor changes meet the village's and DEC's requirements for such stormwater controls and measures. The introduction of stormwater controls is an improvement over existing conditions where there are bare soils and no such controls. The areas between the railroad tracks and the building, and there are no natural resources to be affected by the development of parking. The proposed project will not result in significant adverse environmental impact and no EIS will be required. So if everyone is comfortable with that, I need a motion to declare there's no impact, or in other words, will negative declaration.
So moved.
Second.
Did John Verney come in? John's not here. Amber, he's not here. He didn't show up. Huh? I didn't hear from him. Okay. So let's take a vote. Then we have a motion on the table. Cindy?
Yes.
Ellen? You're muted, but I saw you say you said yes.
Sorry, yes.
Richard?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And John is absent. Okay. We opened the public hearing at our last meeting. We need to reopen the public hearing and then see if there are any public comments on this application. So could I have a motion to reopen the hearing for tonight?
So moved.
Second. Richard?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Amber, could you check to see if there's anyone who would like to speak on this application who's watching tonight? Could you please raise your hand so Amber can allow you to speak?
I do not see anyone who wishes to speak.
Okay. So we need a motion then to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? Okay, Richard,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. So I believe everyone got a copy of a draft resolution to approve the action as long as the applicant addresses the comments as we spoke tonight in Mr. Garcia's memo of June 4th. Does anybody have any issues with the resolution? Any questions? Any problems with pursuing this? Do you want to see an updated document before we do this?
I would just say that if this wasn't just a parking lot, I would, because I think there are enough comments that I would want to see an updated engineering report, but I'm satisfied that, based on what the project is, I think, I'm fine with proceeding with the resolution.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay, this could be going rather quickly here. Do I have a motion then to approve the resolution? It already states that the applicant has to address the comments, so we don't have to amend this resolution in any way. So
Yeah.
resolution as drafted.
So moved.
Seconded and by anyone?
Second?
Okay. Ellen,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, you're good to go. We just wrap things up with Esteban. Andrew, you can go back to the baseball game. And going to be joining us on something else tonight.
And I'll see you in a few.
Chair,
Okay.
thank you. Members of the planning board, really
you very much.
appreciate it. It's a good night. And again, we'll make you proud with the project. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Have a great, and we're up by one. We're up by one. Good night, everyone.
Go Mamaroneck. Okay.
All right, yeah. All right, boys. Great.
Okay, this brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is a site plan review for 355 Phillips Park Road, an amendment of a site plan that was approved back in October, November, one of those months,
Long time ago.
not that long ago.
October 28, 2020.
Thank you. I know I pulled out the old resolution today, but I didn't really look at it in that time. Okay, so let's promote or whatever it is that we do here. Okay, let me get rid of my Halstead Avenue plan here on the screen and let's pull up Phillips Park Road. Okay, we have some revised plans. Applicant. Okay, when we last met, question was actually, okay, the application is to convert the ground floor commercial space into an apartment and add a small balcony or deck or whatever you want to call it on the back overlooking the river. That was the issue that came up of the buffer from the course we need to maintain. So that back in May, here we are in June. So Mr. Stanziali, if I remember correctly, you're the architect, correct?
Correct, yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
So why don't you walk us through
Okay.
the changes you made since you were here last month?
All right.
Last month, yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna go here and oops. All right. Can you see this plan or?
Yes. I have it open on my own screen, so. I can-
Okay. Yeah, I guess, again, as you mentioned, we're seeking to convert this formally approved commercial space on the ground floor next to the parking area to a residential apartment with a loft space at the rear. And we had proposed a deck at the rear, which was about 8 feet deep by 12 feet wide. We have scaled that back somewhat to still 12 feet wide, but 3.5 feet deep, just to make more of a Juliet balcony or something in the back to have access to a couple chairs from the sliding glass door. We did have another rendering prepared, showed that what that would look like from the rear. Again, the rear of the building is all stucco. This is the elevation up above, and this is the ground floor elevations as it pitches out to the rear. And also this is dropped 2 feet also. So it's a little lower than the original floor of the building, but still above the floodplain line, certainly. So that's our revision, and we're just looking to see what your opinion is on that. In any case, we'd most importantly like to proceed with the apartment, but hopefully you will accept the deck as well.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I have one question. Might as well get this started. The setbacks from the water courses, and this is the Mamaroneck River we're talking about, which will flood. It does flood regularly when there are heavy rains,
right?
Especially in this area where tides will surge in and also water will come down from the watershed. And part of the reason why setbacks and buffer zones are required is just so there's no building in that area to impede the flow of water.
Correct.
There's no fence that's going to catch debris and back things up. So my question is, what's the height of the balcony from the ground?
From the ground, the elevation of the deck itself would be 21 feet or 21.4 basically. And the ground below it is probably at the face of the building is 15.
Okay.
So we're still about 6 feet above grade. I think floodplain level is 14.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
My question was sort of similar to yours, Kathy. Does any part of this balcony come into the zone, the water course zone?
Not into the water course zone, no.
It's above it.
It is above it, yes, correct.
Right.
But it is within 50 feet of the water course, is that
Yes.
right?
That it is, Ms. Goldstein, correct. Yes.
And
I don't have a problem with it being, especially if it's over 6 feet above it, if it's above the flood area, because the purpose of the buffer zone is so that there's nothing to impede the flow of water. So if this is above where the water is going to rise, except in very extreme flooding conditions, it's not going to impede the flow of water. So,
Perhaps in that 9.5-inch storm.
I mean, the fence that's there, but I think that's an existing condition. That's more of a problem to me than I think this is at this point in time.
yeah, I guess I'm not convinced that the 50-foot buffer is strictly measured on the ground. I mean, otherwise, I think we'd have a lot of buildings with overhangs. You know, you could encroach into the airspace over the 50-foot buffer. I think it's aesthetic. I think there's a lot of other reasons for the 50-foot buffer, although for health and safety, certainly the flooding is a major problem. Let me ask, is this unit going to be the fair and affordable unit? I guess I need someone to explain to me that when you're doing a building like this and one of the units will be fair and affordable, can that unit be swapped out? You know, this is a rental, right? So you, at any one given time, and as long as one of the units is fair and affordable, you meet the requirement, or is one unit dedicated as fair and affordable?
Well, we were dedicating one of the units on the second floor of the building as the affordable unit, not considering this one as the affordable. It is a rental building, correct?
Okay. Okay, and so the one that you specify when you start renting up will be the one that's fair and affordable unless you decide to change it.
That's correct.
Okay, and
Right. Mhm.
you're free to do that. I'm just wondering how that works.
Right.
Can you also, I just was reading the resolution. There was in the whereas clause on the first page, talking about the green building elements. Can you just remind me quickly what those were? It was green building elements or infrastructure as noted on the original plans, and I don't remember what that was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think primarily, Ms. Goldstein, we were referring to the basically the roof, which is basically a roof garden
Okay.
for the most part. That'll be totally landscaped up there. So I think that was our primary green element in this project. There are green products being used, but we're not seeking a LEED certification to that level on here. But I believe it was the roof containing the landscaping that we're proposing up there as a roof garden.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be LEED certified. It just has
Right.
to meet the code, which is a green, infrastructure element. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yeah, I think my memory was just jogged. I think it was the roof was what was being considered as the green element for this particular project.
Right.
Now you mention it, right. I couldn't have pulled that up out of my memory banks myself this morning, but, okay.
Surprised
There's
I.
also permeable pavers shown in the parking area and bike racks.
Yeah, that's in that filled in area. I don't have the site plan up to the right of this space. Those are all permeable pavers and there are bike racks in there. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, yep. The rendering shows that the height of that wall up there with the landscaping on top, and that's the area where the permeable pavers are and the bike racks towards the front of the building.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Kathy, just one more thing. I want to build on something Cindy had pointed out. Even though this balcony is above the flood level, it does impinge upon the watercourse zone. And I've witnessed many city planning commission meetings where vistas and other, non-physical impingements on restricted zones have made certain projects infeasible. And I'm not comfortable with any overhang. We've already gone out of our way to allow this building to be closer to the river than we'd like. I don't see any reason to allow this balcony. It's an impingement upon the zone along the river.
Okay.
No, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Lippman, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Richard on this one. I feel like I'm being a stickler on this, but the 50 foot is the 50 foot, and any intrusion doesn't work for me.
Well, if you recall again, it sort of makes it worse, exacerbates it, but the existing building is within the 50 feet, of course.
Right.
That's why we've stepped the upper floors to accommodate that 50-foot setback, but the first floor of the building is already in the 50-foot setback. So I understand what you're saying.
It was an existing building. So
Correct. Yes. Right.
Right. Okay. Any other comments or questions or anything?
Yeah, I just want to say, Madam Chair, again, if our main concern is really, again, we'd like to convert this to an apartment. I think that's our main concern. Whether you approve it with the deck or without is really, we like the deck, but if you have an issue with that, then it's fine. We'd just like to get the conversion approved. So.
The residents of that unit would have access to the rooftop garden, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so they don't really need any outdoor space. They have access to outdoor space, and they also could just sit next door in the park too. Maybe not have their breakfast or a cup of coffee, but yeah. And none of the other units have decks or balconies, do they?
No, they do. Yeah, the units in front of the building have.
Oh, the other ones above it.
And the two on the side have access to this upper deck that is circling over here. So, yeah.
Okay. Oh, to the garden, right, to the
Correct.
roof, right, to the
Well, the
roof.
roof garden is also a landscape area at the second floor level as well, which is the roof of the one-story building.
Okay, right, over there, right. All right, okay. If the boards have no other questions, then we can, okay, I have a note for, you can stop sharing the screen, I suppose. Ashley, I have a note that we have to remind ourselves that this was that we typed this as a type 2 action, or do we have to type it as a type 2 action?
You would have to type it as a type 2 action. It was originally classified as an unlisted action, the original project. But this is a minor change of what was previously approved, and this small change could be a type 2 action.
And we didn't do it at the last meeting, so we.
No, you did not.
Okay. Okay.
It is integrated in the resolution that you have in front of you.
Oh, okay. So do we do it by passing the resolution, or do we have to do it as a separate?
So you can do it by passing the resolution. The only thing is in the resolved, in the second resolved paragraph, it will now read, the planning board further determines that no deck for this residential unit is approved, subject to the following conditions. So I put in a no deck option there. So
Right. So we have to make a choice there, whether there's no deck or a reduced deck.
Yeah.
So it appears we have 2 no votes and 2 people who haven't been heard from. We need 3 votes for either action. If it's a tie vote, it's no action, correct?
yes, that's correct. Let's not do that.
And we are missing a member of the planning board. He still hasn't shown up yet, huh? So.
I mean, let me just go on record. I'm not against the residential unit. I just have a problem with the deck.
Right,
Me too.
that's what the resolve clause the resolve clause basically gives us. It's written so there's 2 choices there, so we have to pick one when we pass the resolution.
Can I also point out item 9 and 10, I think they're sort of typos. Because it says there are at least 5 residential units in the building. With a new residential unit, the number of units is 7. Is that at least 5? Is that part of the code?
Should be 6. There's 6 units.
Right, but I think, right.
Yeah, that's part of the code, Cindy.
It's a 5, okay.
Yeah.
And then number 10,
Yep.
it's a little awkward. It says, and this project does not exceed that being 1.18, talking about FAR.
Yeah.
The sentence is a little awkward.
Yep.
So the maximum permitted floor area ratio is 2.0, and this one doesn't exceed that, as it is 1.18. Is that what the sentence should say? Right.
Yep.
It seemed fine to me. I understood it, but I get it, right.
I understand it. I just,
Yeah.
That's okay. We can always improve. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
So just so I understand the deck objection, I mean, I hadn't been in on this project when it started, or
Did she freeze?
yeah.
Rose, yeah.
Ellen, she's frozen.
Somebody froze her.
Frozen in time.
so.
Wait, she's back. Ellen, can you hear us? No.
Ellen, try turning off your video. Be a bandwidth issue.
I don't know. if she
Maybe,
can hear
maybe
me.
Andy Spatz did it somehow, maybe with a little leak.
Somebody in her household also logged onto the internet. That happens in my bridge class all the time. All right. Okay, we're gonna have to wait for her because we need her.
84.
So does anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
I do have the site plan ready to pull up when she comes back. She has a question about where the 50-foot line is.
Oh, wait, now I'm back on.
Oh, here you are. Yay, okay, good.
Welcome back.
Okay.
We had to wait for you. All right, you had a question, Ellen?
Oh, yes. So I was saying that I wasn't at the earlier meetings on this project. So I just want to be sure I understand the objection to the deck. And that is that the building itself is within the 50-foot buffer zone. That's the objection? Okay.
Well, it's a little bit more than that because I don't remember all of the issues, but actually Richard probably remembers them better. Because it's already there, they weren't supposed to be expanding it. There was some ambiguity in the code we were wrestling with, and you weren't supposed to exacerbate the issue by renovating. They were just renovating the part of the building that wasn't within the 50-foot buffer, whereas Richard and I looked at the code and basically were saying that any alteration of a building of which any part encroaches is not allowed.
Right,
I
and
see.
it doesn't matter how high off the ground the impingement is. It's still within the 50-foot buffer zone. So therefore you can't build there.
But the building department,
This section of code right here.
Yeah, but I don't always agree with the building department.
but the building department's determination is what governs and rules, correct?
That is correct. That's
Right,
correct.
so when the building inspector determined that the upper floors were not within the 50-foot setback,
Well, we're not arguing. The
right,
building is going to be built. It's just the issue
building
of
has
the
to be
deck
built.
further intruding into the
Right.
restricted zone. That's
Right.
the only issue. No issue with the building.
right. So that was the issue.
Understood.
Okay, so before we make a motion to pass the resolution, we make a decision on whether or not we're going to allow the balcony deck, whatever you want to call it. So
Can I make a suggestion, Kathy, that somebody make a motion specifying which way they're voting on that point, and then you can see if you've got a majority?
I was going to do a straw poll.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve with no deck.
Second,
Okay. Okay, let's do the votes we know we have. Cindy?
yes.
Okay, this is to approve with no deck. Richard?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
And doesn't matter how I'm going to vote. I was going to vote no. So the resolution then will be without a deck. So I need a motion to approve the resolution with the choice of no deck and the other grammatical changes that Cindy and Teresa pointed out. So
I'll move.
as amended. Okay, a second.
Second,
Okay, so now we're voting on the resolution itself with no deck. Ellen,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Cindy,
yes.
and I'll vote yes. Okay,
Right, thank you very much.
okay,
Thank you.
All right, have a nice evening.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashley, Amber.
Okay, that brings us to our last application of the evening at 1,000, a nice round number, Grecian Point Road, where the applicant is proposing a new in-ground swimming pool with other amenities, associated landscaping, masonry, drainage, and site work. This is a new application. So we invite, Michael Stein's with us again. We invite the applicant to come and present the project to us and to the public who might be watching this. So, okay, we have, I see Mr. How do you say your name?
Good evening, I'm Sean Jansky.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, good evening, members of the planning board. My name is Sean Jansky. I'm a landscape architect here for Neil and Corinne Zola, who would like to install a swimming pool. Shall I share my screen?
Sure.
The project consists of removing a small sport court. I'll get to the survey here so you can see this. There's a survey of the back of the house. This is at 1000 Grecian Point Road. The property is not in a flood zone. It's outside of a flood zone. Excuse me 1 second, turn that off. The scope of work includes removing a small sport court and the installation of a swimming pool pretty much right in the center of the backyard. The pool will meet zoning requirements, setback requirements. The scope is a pool with a separate spa and some patio around it. We have had a chance to give a review of 3 of the consultants' memos. I'm happy to kind of chat about a couple of the items that were in some of those, maybe the relevant portions. If you'd like, I'll just kind of jump in and talk about those.
Sure. Go right ahead.
In the Susan Oakley's Terabella review memo, there was some comments about the tree protection and some of the new trees we propose to put. You can kind of see them over along the left here. I think we can certainly agree to follow the Village of Mamaronec's tree protection details. So I think we can just agree to do what she's saying we should be doing, which is following that and placing any trees that we need to around the root zone and the drift zone of those trees. I can show you a photograph, which is pretty helpful. You can see it's a big wide open space. The pool's proposed to be installed right in the middle of the yard, well away from the property lines. It's very well screened with evergreens and existing vegetation. What very few, if any, holes in screening there are, we of course want to fill them with some plants because the homeowners of course would love to have the privacy of that. So I think we're fine with that condition of Susan Oakley's memo. We also had a chance to review the AKRF memo, and really there was only a couple small items on there that we think are relatively minor. One is just we'll need to clarify the limit of disturbance. There's a small discrepancy between our plan and Hudson's drainage plan of 100 or so square feet. So we can clarify that. And then the village requires that the pool not be more than 40% of the rear yard. And we're at 3%. So we're not even in the same ballpark of meeting that maximum threshold. So I think those were the only 3 minor comments in those 2 memos. And then I know Michael Stein is on the call too, and he could probably address any of the Kellard Sessions comments that were in that memo.
Before you pass this to Michael, also, will there be any exterior lighting, overhead lighting, or any sound systems installed with the pool? Or
No.
One other thing that the AKRF.
None of that is proposed.
None of that is proposed. Okay. Okay. So do you want to talk about the stormwater management system? Pass it over to Michael.
Okay.
Or, I mean, we can get the presentation, then if anybody has any questions for either of the presenters, we can go back to questions. Okay.
Yes, again, good evening. Michael Stein with Hudson Engineering. So the design on this, we ended up doing multiple test holes throughout the property, in part because we encountered some lead rock in some places, poor percolation in others. We actually returned and came back and did a 5th test hole where we did have positive percolation rates, albeit a little bit slow at 1 inch per hour. But the minimum required by the minimum permitted by DEC is 0.5 inch per hour. So we're not terrific, but we're still acceptable range. We put in isolation rows similar to the 626, where we're treating for water quality of the water coming out. Again, we're going to be over 1,000 square feet of disturbed area, actually 2,000 square feet of disturbed area, which requires in the village that we provide water quality. We had some minor regrading in order to put the system in. Other than that, we have the comments from Esteban, and we'll work to address them. We'll have them submitted and addressed in time for the next meeting, and hopefully we'll be all set.
Okay.
I mean, if there's anything specific on the comments you'd like me to address, I'm happy to. Just let me know. But otherwise, we consider that everything is. There's nothing that was earth-shattering. That everything that everything we'd be able to address.
Michael, in terms of the stormwater testing that you did, which test holes? I see here that it appears that the test hole 2 was used for the elevation, and then you used test hole 5 for your percolation. Did you do a test pit or a deep test at test hole location 5?
I have to go back and double check. I'm not sure immediately offhand.
Okay.
Okay, it sounds like we have a path forward. Michael, do you want to stop sharing your screen? So
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
that's okay. We'll get the rest of the group back on. And if anyone from the planning board has any questions for the applicant, for either Mr. Jansky or Mr. Stein. I think this was pretty straightforward. And the SWIP is the issue with some minor changes, minor comments and questions from AKOF. Okay, so it sounds like then you have a little bit of minor things to address, to make some changes on some plans. And if you can work with Amber, if you think you're going to get them on for the next agenda, the documents have to be submitted by a certain date, and we can get you on the agenda for the next meeting. If not, it'd be the one after that. But it doesn't sound like there's anything major here that anybody needs to do a lot of work on, so you might be able to get that in. And probably or possibly we could just wrap this up at the next time we see you. Okay, any other comments, questions, or anything?
No, I think we'll be able to make the revisions that we talked about and submit it.
Right. Right, just, yeah, the area disturbance, I think it was a little bit more than 100 square feet. It looked like it was more like 1,000 square feet difference.
Okay, I saw.
See a decimal point?
I'm missing that.
But I mean, just, pick one of the numbers that's correct.
Yes.
And use it consistently, and then we'll be fine, right? Okay, that's it then. Oh, I'm sorry, somebody should have jumped in. We have to type this for SECRA. It's a type 2 action since it's a private family house, a private house. So I need a motion to type it as a type 2 for SECRA purposes.
So moved.
I need a
Second.
second. Okay, let's vote on the SECRA.
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I vote yes. I've got a checklist here to check off. Okay, that's everything then I had on my list here for tonight for this application. Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you too. And on that note, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I don't think we have there's no minutes or anything for today. And I want everybody on the planning board to know, I got a notice from the deputy clerk about what minutes were deficient, and she sent a spreadsheet to all of the chairs, and we got to see what everybody else's were missing, and the planning board was doing really well.
Yay.
Yay. We had one meeting, and it was a special meeting with the board of trustees, and they did the minutes. So we had all of ours. Okay, on that note then, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Anyone, all in favor? We'll just do a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.